What was once called a conspiracy theory but is now known as true today. The descendant organizations that built and owned the Titanic denied it broke in half while sinking until the wreck was found in 2 pieces. I have no idea why none of the original engineers or proprietors were still around. But as recent as the late 1970s and early 80s, survivors who said it broke were dismissed as suffering from delusions brought on by hyperthermia. Despite no direct involvement, the contemporary lineage of White Star and Harland and Wolff were adamant there was absolutely no way it could have broke the way it did. Then Ballard found it, and the denial never spoke of it again. Tuskegee Syphilis Study. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a study on the natural progression of untreated syphilis in rural African American men in Alabama under the guise of free health care, without their informed consent. The men were not told they had syphilis, nor were they treated for it even after penicillin became the standard treatment in 1947. What is the worst lie you've been told your whole life? My friend was helping her boyfriend when his dad discovered he had cancer. He was distraught and went home often. It put a pretty big strain on their relationship. Finally, his father succumbed and passed away. I broke up with her shortly after. 5 days later, she got a call from his dead father asking if everything was okay between the two of them. The father never even had cancer. He made the whole thing up. I grew up in an Italian family. When I was about 14 years old, I asked why they had a single long nail on their hand, and more specifically, the pinky. They all told me it was because it made picking their nose easier. I believed this into my late 20s, till one day my coworkers informed me that it's a coke nail. Then it all made sense. Your bio father, Guy A, knew I was pregnant and he didn't want you. When he showed up to court to sign away his rights in order for Dad, Guy B, to adopt you, he shrugged and said, "I don't care, but Dad has always been there for you." Yeah. I found out at 30 that a different man, Guy C, was my bio father. Mom knew, and he never knew I existed. Man was crushed. What country seems dangerous but really isn't? Australia. Everyone complains about the wildlife killing you, but as long as you're in more urban areas, there's not much to worry about. I rarely see big bugs either. Zambia and Botswana. White guy gets lost following his satanic damn Google Maps and winds up in a Zambian shanty town. Got out to ask directions. Everyone speaks near fluent English and are super helpful providing directions. Have to be comfortable with the occasional Emperor Scorpion migration, though. Rwanda. After the mass unaliving in 1994, Rwanda was often associated with violence and instability. Today, however, it's known for its clean streets, low crime rates, and the government's efforts in ensuring safety and security. Which countries don't seem dangerous but really are? I went to Vietnam last year to visit family, and I can believe it. Imagine my shock as a person who was basically trained to always wear seatbelts to be put in the front seat of a cab where none of the seatbelts worked before the driver proceeded to drive at like 80 mph, weaving between hundreds of motorcycles at 10 p.m. On a similar note, I was also basically trained to always wear life jackets on boats, so imagine my surprise when the boat tour guide said, "We didn't need them." Papua New Guinea. Looking at the pictures, you see sandy beaches, tropical animals, and just another paradise in Oceania. Don't go if you are a woman without armed escorts. It's very likely the worst place in the world for gender-related violence. Australia. I've met plenty of European tourists who have wanted to just drive through the outback while being woefully underprepared. Just basic stuff like not knowing what to do in an emergency and not having enough water. It's not a joke. People die out there all the time, and it'll be 40 C plus and hundreds of kilometers before you see someone again if something goes wrong. What are the craziest declassified CIA documents? You can download most of Osama bin Laden's hard drive off the CIA's website. It's got a fair few licensed movies, anime, games, that sort of thing, all free for anyone who wants to get it. It's not American, but Operation Mincemeat on Netflix is pretty crazy and based on a true story. They faked war plans invading Greece and floated AN already dead body from a submarine near a beach in Spain with the faked plans on the body, which they knew would get back to the Germans. It did. The Germans rearranged troops to prepare for an invasion of Greece, and the Allies walked into Sicily. MK Ultra. But unfortunately, the only documents we got from it are from an off-site storage space that the officials in the CIA forgot about. Also, the CIA document that says the political structure of the USSR wasn't a one-man, one-rule, or the one talking about how Tibet was a feudal backwater. What's something your family raised you doing that you later learnt was really weird? My parents are really germophobic, and my dad thinks he has to kill the bacteria on the bread when he buys it fresh, so he puts it in the oven to toast and almost burns it. He thinks that whoever did the bread sneezed or accidentally spit on it. In my country, we eat bread almost every day. I thought everybody did this. This is insane. Before I was totally competent swimming by myself, my mom would put a life jacket on me, tie a long piece of nylon rope to it, and chuck me in the river. She'd basically swim me on a leash down the river for fun. Mom, you are the classiest redneck. Grew up in a hoarder house. I look back at my childhood now and can't believe the cluttered nightmare I grew up in. Now I relish throwing things away when I'm done with them. Driving approximately 1,900 kilometers to see our grandparents, since it was less expensive than taking a flight. What do you swear you saw but can't prove it? My father and I both watched a bear-sized humanoid run bipedally across a back road leaving our house one night. We both did that. No way, did you see a two-legged hairy thing run across the road too? Same area a cop's dash cam caught something similar. Quality of that footage has fallen victim to lossy compression. I was driving in Mexico on a toll road in the middle of the night. There wasn't much traffic. All of a sudden, in the sky, I saw an upside-down gas station, plain as day. 5 minutes later, the gas station was right in front of me. The same one that I saw reflected in the sky. A real store. Nothing special about it. But I swear I saw it in the sky before I ever saw it. My friend and I were riding our bikes as young teenagers in our neighborhood one dark evening when we rode past our mutual friend's house and saw him through a window walking around with a metal colander on his head like a Spaceball's helmet. We never asked him about it.
Friendly's victorious. Hostiles eliminated.
What is the most effed up thing to happen on Reddit? Not as well known as some others, but I saw a thread on Glitch in the Matrix where someone talked about how a room in their apartment disappeared when they were away for a long weekend. Their roommates said it never existed too, so they were freaking out. If I remember correctly, they updated a month or so later, just saying, "Update, I have a brain tumor." There was a thread a while back on this sub, asking people who unalived somebody why they did it. One of the more popular comments was from this guy who said that when he and his friends were kids in the 80s, they were playing outside when they got to the top of this hill, and came across another kid who was generally considered to be the weird kid in the town. They tell him to leave, but he refuses. An argument ensues, which ends with one of the boys pushing the kid off the hill to his unaliving, leading to OP and his friends to quickly flee the scene. The next day, the body was gone. The thing is, users were quickly able to find what state OP was from because he had shared it on his profile several times, and when somebody replied to his comment with an unsolved case from that state that was similar to his story, OP quickly deleted his comment. The entire sub dedicated to getting high on Benadryl is pretty effed up, but specifically, I recall one guy posting exceedingly large amounts he would take, and then one day he posted a lethal amount, and then never posted again. What was the dumbest rule from your strict parents? Only one person is allowed to be sick at a time. If you're sick and a family member picks it up from you, it's not your turn anymore, so don't you dare be showing any symptoms. I could play Mortal Kombat, but only with the sound off. Apparently it was fine to see all the gore and stuff, but heaven forbid I listened to the soundtrack and fight noises. When I was 17, I went on a date with a 16-year-old girl who was new to my school. She had moved there from Northwest Arkansas. Her parents were really strict. When I showed up to our date, I was told that we'll be traveling in her parents' car. I had to sit in the front with her dad, and she sat in the back with her mom. They talked to me about Jesus the entire ride to the Olive Garden. She left a handwritten note in my locker on Monday apologizing. No, we didn't end up together. No yawning allowed when doing homework. Apparently it meant that I was not interested in doing homework. Serious. 911 operators of Reddit. What is a call that keeps you up at night? I got a 911 call about a vehicle that ran off the road. The caller told me that the female driver was unconscious, but had a pulse. He then proceeded to tell me that the passenger was a fatal. I asked if he had checked for a pulse, at which point he told me no. It was a young child that had been decapitated. I asked him to find anything he could to cover the child because I didn't want the mother to regain consciousness and have that be the last image she had of her child. I'm a firefighter, and I overheard a call on the radio from another unit. They were dispatched to a possible unaliving. The information given while the crews were en route was, patient's wife came home and found a note on the door saying, "Honey, I'm already gone if you're reading. This please do not come in and see me like this." The crews arrived, and the next thing you hear on the radio was the paramedic telling dispatch code 4, meaning patient is deceased, and in the background you can hear the wife screaming as loud as she could. It was chilling. People who've never desired to be one of the cool kids or popular. Why? My parents raised us, me and my siblings, that it was okay to be ourselves and not feel the desire to fit in. While fitting is natural when you find your own friend group, it isn't always the popular or cool kids, and that is perfectly fine. Life is short. Spend time being who you are and who you want to be, not thriving for the acceptance of others or chasing social status that you may never obtain. I didn't feel the desire to blindly conform to something I didn't view as important. A lot of the popular people at my school weren't the nicest. Plus, those kids tried so hard with their outfits and hair and style every single day. I'll be first to admit I like my sleep too much, to be waking up extra early to get ready and pretend to be someone I knew I wasn't. I am a lazy bee through and through, always have been, always will be. What would instantly destroy your life just by doing it once? Pet the bison. Jump in the hot spring. Climb the rail. Hike into the desert when everyone and their mother told you not to. National parks are a gauntlet of Darwinian temptation. Negligent unalivings. I'm sure self-defense unalivings are not as difficult to handle as it is justified, not saying everyone would be fine, but negligent unaliving is another level. You drive under the influence, text while driving, or not pay attention and smack into a pedestrian, you're going to live in a nightmare. Foraging and picking mushrooms you cannot identify. As an older guy in the trades, mess around with safety. I've seen enough people mess up their livelihood up by taking a stupid, unnecessary chance. It's always a shame when you hear of a young tradesperson die, because you know they probably don't know better or didn't work with people who were teaching them how to do it safely. Number one rule is, come home at the end of each day. Reconnecting with people who were bad influences on you. You'd be surprised how quick one can return to their old ways. People who've never desired to be one of the cool kids or popular. Why? My parents raised us, me and my siblings, that it was okay to be ourselves and not feel the desire to fit in. While fitting is natural when you find your own friend group, it isn't always the popular or cool kids, and that is perfectly fine. Life is short. Spend time being who you are and who you want to be, not thriving for the acceptance of others or chasing social status that you may never obtain. I didn't feel the desire to blindly conform to something I didn't view as important. A lot of the popular people at my school weren't the nicest. Plus, those kids tried so hard with their outfits and hair and style every single day. I'll be first to admit I like my sleep too much, to be waking up extra early to get ready and pretend to be someone I knew I wasn't. I am a lazy bee through and through, always have been, always will be. What's the dumbest rule your school ever enforced? That if you say or do anything back to your bully, it becomes a mutual conflict and isn't bullying. So if they start calling you slurs and making you feel bad every day and you call them stupid once or twice, the school probably won't help. Also, dress code required school-branded hoodies. They were $50. If you wore a non-school hoodie, you got in-school suspension. Not being allowed to wear hoodies or jackets or sweaters that lacked the official school logo. I was a high school teacher for several years. Both buildings I worked in were freezing, and having admin pull students out of my classroom during a 50-minute period and giving them detention instead of letting them learn is cruel and completely unnecessary in my opinion. If you throw snowballs, you get a one-day suspension. The first long weekend after a snowfall, everyone would throw snowballs to get an additional day added to the long weekend. Candy canes were outlawed because you could sharpen them to a point and use them as a shiv. I went to school in rural Washington. We definitely weren't somewhere that shankings were to be expected. What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? A student that was in the grade above me, I was a senior, he had graduated, unalived his girlfriend and buried her by the train tracks right behind the school. My English teacher in the 11th grade was sleeping with the whole girls' basketball team in exchange for straight A's. I actually failed English that year, but when that made the news, my school said I didn't have to go anymore because he wasn't doing the grading properly. Everyone who had his class got a B at his. The caretaker unalived 2 local girls and hid them in the school. He tried using the clay kiln to burn them. He later dumped them a few miles away. When I was in 5th grade, the male teacher I'd had in 4th grade was fired for helping a high school cheerleader undress. Looking back, he was a creeper. Edited to add, I was wrong. It was a 10-year-old. Just found it.